Father Jaja, and I know that Dr. Shimba will be talking about him who went to Rome to actually pick these lyrics. And we also have the missionaries of Africa headquartered in Rome who have actually been very critical in making sure that these lyrics are secured, but also the other historical artifacts of importance for this exhibition. And these have been coordinated by the personal delegate, provincial delegate, that is Father Vincent Lubega, who has coordinated all of this on behalf of the missionaries of Africa. The government of Uganda, definitely it goes without saying, behind the curtains, they may not be that visible, but believe you me, this is an exhibition that has big international dimensions to it, and also security dimensions to it. So the government of Uganda has, through the Directorate of Defense and Intelligence, they have provided security. These items, especially the lyrics that we have flown in from Rome, they carry that powerful significance, and so they have to be treated with all the safety and security that they deserve. And this directorate has been there to provide all the necessary assistance in safeguarding them, and even until the time that they will be taken back.
So as a university, we are looking at this as the start of a long journey, because Uganda Martyrs University has taken up the challenge that beyond holding the name Uganda Martyrs, we should indeed be the go-to center when it comes to matters to do with the Uganda Martyrs. As a university, we are positioning ourselves and would like to walk into the position that we shall be the center for any scholarly work on the Uganda Martyrs. And what we are staging today is ushering us into that journey. And so a lot of research is going to be undertaken, collection of all the relics and all literature, so that scholars of religion and scholars of the matters can feel comfortable at the Uganda Martyrs University. Because who else should be more informed about the Uganda Martyrs than their own university? So indeed, it behooves us to be able to show that indeed we are the University of the Uganda Martyrs by offering this scholarly opportunity to those that would like to delve deeper into the lives and workings of the Holy Uganda Martyrs. And also to prolong the commemoration of the Uganda Martyrs beyond 3rd June to the 18th of October, so that at least those 4 months are a beehive of activity around the Uganda Martyrs. 18th of October being the graduation day at Uganda Martyrs University. So every calendar year, 18th of October is the graduation day at Uganda Martyrs University. And would like that to be another climaxing event in the tourism around the Uganda Martyrs. Thank you very much.
This afternoon, as we do reflect on the lives of the Ugandan martyrs and their impact, looking at the two aspects of Caesar and gold, which they embodied in their lives, and they were able to do that and set for us a challenge. From the word go, when the story was taken to the Archdiocese, who is the patron of the university, in the name of the Archbishop of Kampala, His grace bought it, and he gave all the support then and even now, to the point that at the reception of the relics, he was fully present, which is a clear support, a clear sign of his support and love. And through his endorsement that he gave us, he went ahead even to assign me as the archivist of the Archdiocese to closely work with the university to see that we pull this through successfully, so that we can all learn from the story of the Ugandan martyrs. Now we come off from mainly the religious aspect. How can we better our lives spiritually, looking at the example of the Ugandan martyrs? How did they make it? Can we learn from them also to purify our lives? More emphatically, looking at the aspect of God, putting him in his position, but also Caesar being obedient to the leaders, to the civil leaders. And this is a lesson for each one of us. A lesson that tells us that there's no contradiction, and there shouldn't be any rubbing of shoulders between the religious calling or life and then being civil as the state requires of us. Ultimately, as the professor said, we as the Archdiocese, we are willing to work with the university to come up with a religious museum that is typically Catholic, such that every now and again we can always go there and be reminded of our faith and be reminded of what we have to do, and more so learn more about the things that maybe happened and we're not there. May this afternoon be inspiration to each one of us as we go back. And this is just the beginning, it's a whole month plus. So let's make use of this time to know more about our God and then to serve our state in such a worthy manner. I thank you once again, and I wish you all the best this afternoon.
It's a great day as we launch publicly this exhibition under the theme of God and Caesar. In the second half of the 19th century, the Kingdom of Uganda witnessed the spread of two Abrahamic faiths, Islam on the one hand and Christianity on the other. Pope Leo XIII entrusted the organization of the evangelizing mission in Equatorial Africa to Archbishop and the later Cardinal Charles Lavigeri, the founder of the Missionaries of Africa, commonly known as White Fathers. Archbishop Lavigeri became, between 1878 and 1883, the apostolic delegate of Central African missions, of which Uganda will be a part. Soon after, Archbishop Lavigeri appointed Father and later on Bishop Leon Livignac as his sub-delegate of Victoria Nyanza to head the mission. Father Livignac sent two missionaries ahead of him, Father Simon Ludel, whom we'll come to know as Mapera, and Brother Amas Delmas, known as Amasi, who arrived on the shores of Uganda on the 17th of February, 1879, ahead of their superior. The two became the first ever Catholic missionaries to set foot in the Pro-Vicariate Apostolic of Victoria Nyanza. For Kabaka Mutesa, political alliance building with Christian European countries from where the missionaries hailed from was very key. The threat of the Ottoman Empire that spread from Egypt and Sudan was pretty much omnipotent in Buganda's psyche at the time. After he had weighed between the English Protestant missionaries and the French Catholic missionaries on the other hand, Mutesa thoughtfully assumed that a political alliance with France would serve his kingdom better. Therefore, on the 13th of July, 1879, King Mutesa invited Father Livignac and Father Ludel to his palace. He proposed that one of them goes with Buganda delegates chosen by himself to France and lobby for a political alliance between Buganda and France for mutual protection. The two Catholic missionaries turned down the king's request and instead offered to connect the king to the French consul in Zanzibar to entertain such requests. They reiterated to the king that their sole purpose for coming to Buganda was Christian evangelization, not political alliance building. Had these French missionaries accepted King's request, Uganda would have perhaps been a French colony. Disappointed by the French Catholic missionaries, Mutesa turned to the English Protestant missionaries. The latter responded almost immediately and positively. The same year, Mr. Wilson and Dr. Felkin, two important missionaries, church missionaries delegates, put together a delegation of 4 Buganda Kingdom officials chosen by the king himself, namely Namukade, Katuluba, Chitaka, and Sebadu. They set off for England. Mutesa's successor, King Mwanga II, together with a coterie of non-Christian chiefs and officials at his royal court, grew increasingly suspicious of the new religion, and particularly the native converts, the catechumens. The native Protestant Christian converts inaugurally suffered the martyrdom on the 31st of January, 1885. Mwanga will particularly grow more anxious about his losing grip on the absolute and unquestionable power. This power is what his predecessor had unquestionably enjoyed. And in a maneuver, one of his highly placed royal pages and a recent convert to Catholic Christianity, Joseph Mukasa Balikudembe, had spoken truth to power when he reminded the king of the impropriety of plotting to kill the Anglican Bishop James Hannington, who was approaching Buganda from the ill-fated routes of the east. For this, Mukasa Balikudembe, whose heir to the throne we are privileged to have in the name of Balikudembe Mukasa here. Let's once again welcome this important fatidical family that witnessed the first Catholic martyrdom in the country. Eventually, for Mukasa Balikudembe, for having spoken truth to power, he will be condemned to death and executed on the 15th of November, 1885, thus becoming the first native Catholic Christian that opened the floodgates of religious persecution in Buganda. These floodgates of persecution will be widely open in the ensuing month as Christians were construed to be enemies of the states. 22 Catholic Christians converted who were mostly serving at the royal courts, persecuted between 1885 and 1887, and whose life and testimonies were documented by the Catholic missionaries, will be declared the first saints of modern times in Africa south of Sahara. These martyrs of Uganda were beatified by Pope Benedict XV on the 6th of June, 1920, and canonized by Pope Paul VI on the 18th of October, 1964. In commemoration of that moment, unprecedented in the history of the Church, the Center for African Studies at Uganda Martyrs University co-curated a multimedia exhibition on the Uganda Martyrs to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee for their canonization. Never before had the Pope brought such a large number in the canon of sainthood. So was it willed by the Holy Spirit that this be Africans south of Sahara to be enrolled in the canon of sainthood. This co-curation of the first ever historical exhibition has taken place in a collaborative partnership with owners of the rare exhibits and relics, who include the Archdiocese of Kampala, ably represented by the Chief Archivist of Kampala Archdiocese, Father Tony, our Deputy Co-Curator and the Deputy Curator of the exhibition, Father Anthony Musubire. Thank you so very much. Together with the Archdiocese of Kampala, we reached out to the Vatican Dicastery for Communications, and I'm happy to report that the Uganda Catholic TV, in a live broadcast, is enabling us all the way to the Vatican to capture the proceedings of today's events. Let's thank in absentia the Dicastery archivist Pietro Coco, who not only willed to give me access to this material when on the visit to Rome at the Holy See, but also gave me lunch and supper out of his generous pockets in the name of Uganda Martyrs. We reached out as well to the missionaries of Africa, the spiritual founders of Catholicism in this land, and the sole custodian of all archival and audiovisual material pertaining to the Uganda Martyrs. In the same spirit, we reached out to the friars at the Uganda Martyrs Minor Basilica, Munyonyo Shrine, today represented by the chief publicist, Miss Sarah Biriomisho. We are pleased to have you here on behalf of the Uganda Martyrs Munyonyo community that's offered us freely the important publicity we pride in. We also reached out in the same vein to other academic institutions, foremost among which is the University of Michigan, who lended us Professor Peterson. Professor Derek Peterson, please stand up for recognition. Derek Peterson is not only the co-curator of this exhibition, who lended us important intellectual insight, but also maneuvered to convince his provost to give us important substantial funding to take the task forward and bring this show to realization. On the faith-based institutions, we are very proud and extremely thankful to stand by the Gaba Catholic professionals, of whom I'm proudly associated, and I'd love Maxine Kadu, here present, on behalf of the Gaba Catholic professionals, to stand for recognition. We reached out to the custom-based institutions, and we went all the way to the Kabaka Foundation and the Uganda Kingdom, who sent us today Honorable David Mpanga to come and witness this day. And on the government-based institutions, we are very much pleased for the institutional partnership we are enjoying from the Ministry of Tourism, represented by the highest echelon, the cabinet minister who is with us, the commissioner for museum and monuments who is with us, and of course the chief curator of the Uganda Museum, Nelson Abiti, who is one of our co-curators as well. So the exhibition will be on the show. The exhibition on the show today chronicles the story of the first Catholic faithful from their condemnation and burning at Namugongo to their triumphant recognition as saints of the Catholic Church in Rome in 1964. At the core of the story is a meaning-loaded gospel precept to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and to God what belongs to God. We are scooping this from Matthew 22:21. How did the church and the state as institutions meet and interact in Uganda? How did faith and politics manifest in the lives and the choices of Uganda's early converts to Christianity? These interrogations, which were and still are having no simple answers. Martyrdom became the path chosen by the would-be martyrs, when they were faced with a demand from the king that ran counter to the Christian instruction and value they have been espousing. In the word of a prolific missionary of Mill Hill Fathers, Reverend Father Thonen, and allow me to quote, having been trained from childhood to unwavering fidelity and allegiance to the sacred office of the king, whose trust servants they were proud to be, they rose unhesitatingly to the perfect loyalty that gives to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God's. Contemporary viewers of this exhibition, we hope, will be ushered into a very complicated story that privileges the Uganda Martyrs as laymen who were endowed with extraordinary graces to know exactly at what point to return to Caesar's things and to God's what's God's. It is our deep hope and our enthusiasm that through this historical retrospective, we will come to know the lives and the afterlives of the Uganda Martyrs canonized, so that believers today and non-believers, Ugandans and non-Ugandans, to develop a fuller, richer sense of public vocation. I thank you.
Professor Rwanga Runyigo, you left your colleague behind, but nonetheless, I request him humbly, Honorable Professor Semakola Kiwanuka, to also join us on stage. October 1964, when the Uganda Martyrs were canonized, one wants to ask a question. And this question is going to go to all of you as a two-day tabra, and you have 2 minutes to give me your individual perception or answer to this question. Can you explain in your own words to the younger generations before us, or even ourselves, how the story of the Uganda Martyrs came to occupy a pride place in the country's nation-building process? You know, we are in an era where majority of the most noisy Ugandans are possibly referred to as Gen Zs. They were perhaps not even, their parents had not met at the time the Uganda Martyrs were canonized. But they ask, why should we be going back to relics such as the Uganda Martyrs as opposed to looking forward? So in your own words, and I'll start with you, Dr. John Vianney Chitolo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, moderator, and everybody present here. I happen to be one of those who were not present at the time when the Martyrs were canonized, but I have lived the history of the Martyrs. As a matter of fact, my home parish, where I was born, is where history began. The history of the church in Uganda, that is Nabulagala Mapera, just close here, where the great Kabaka Mutesa I gave a plot of land to the Catholic missionaries to begin this noble work of evangelization of Buganda and later on Uganda. The history of Uganda is very rich, but much of that history is actually not known to majority of the young generation. And even when you go to the international scene, Uganda is not known for so many things. Perhaps those who have traveled a bit or extensively, you might have been asked about one person or maybe two things in Uganda. When I was in Europe, many people whom I met asked me about Idi Amin Dada. They asked me, do you know Idi Amin Dada? And they told me about the many stories they had about him and the horror that was in the international news about Amin. And then the other thing that they asked me about was about the animals in Uganda. They asked me, but Father, do you move around with lions on the streets? And I told them, well, we have animals, but they are kept in game reserves. And actually, quite a number of them have loved to come to Uganda and have visited Uganda, and they have seen what reality is. So, on the international scene, Uganda is known for quite a few things, and unfortunately, one of them is not positive. But now, the Uganda Matters, the story of the Uganda Matters comes as a glorious story that, sheds a beam of light to the image of Uganda, to the face of Uganda. And I think for the present generation, those who are not there at that time can have something to be proud of. When it comes to 3rd June every year, and a mammoth of people trek to Uganda from many countries around Africa and even beyond Africa, it becomes a big deal for us Ugandans. And we can actually identify ourselves as Ugandans for that beautiful story that we have in the name of the Uganda Martyrs, the sacrifice that they made. And therefore, I think that's something that we should consider and look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father John Vianney. That's a very good perspective.
I love talking about the martyrs. And I've spoken to people from the point of view of religion, and I've said popes have been here not because Uganda is the Pearl of Africa, but because of the martyrs. And I've been made to understand that today, with the possible exception of one pilgrimage in Latin America, June 3rd is the largest pilgrimage in the Christian world today. This is because of the martyrs. I'm going to focus on two things. One is to understand Kabaka Mwanga. My colleague here, I think he's probably you are not the only one, who has written sympathetically about Mwanga. Mwanga was a young man. He comes to the throne, I think, at the age of 17 or 18. A bit ungovernable. And here there is what appears to be the challenge to his authority. Let us understand him from the point of view of youth and political challenge. Sam here has given a context which many people don't know. Mukasa Bali Kudembe was not killed because of religion. He was killed because the incumbent Katikiro Mukasa, it had come to his knowledge that any time this young man is going to replace him. And Mukasa had the power and the opportunity. The opportunity was to use religion and get rid of his potential opponent. This dimension has not been brought about clearly. So he took advantage of that, and in order to get rid of his potential political opponent. Caesar, and those of us who know history, this is not, Buganda at that time was not the first example of conflict between Caesar and God. Throughout history, this conflict has been there in various parts of the world. Therefore, what happened here was what happens elsewhere when political authority seems to be challenged or feels it's challenged by other forces. from the Christian point of view, such people who resist or who respond a different manner are called martyrs. That's not just here in Uganda. It happened elsewhere throughout history. So we would like to bring this understanding of this dimension. The other thing which fascinates me, but I think it has also happened throughout history, is that these men at court, they didn't know much about Jesus. They didn't know much about Christianity. But the fact that it got into them and they are ready to die for it, it's something which I cannot explain. Maybe the gentleman here with the collar, whose job is to study religion, can try to explain that. I look back sometimes and just get fascinated by these things. There is also something which fascinates me, or shouldn't, is the degree of belief. On the eve of June 3rd, several years back, I was driving from somewhere up country, and I found ladies, old women, trekking to Namgongo. They looked very tired and worn out, and I offered them a lift. They refused, because I think they had dedicated themselves to walk to Namgongo. They refused, and I said, my God. I don't know what you wanted me to bring out, but I would like to say the conflict between Caesar and God did not begin here. It has been there throughout history.
Thank you very much. That's a very good perspective.
Thank you.
There is a growing debate in the country and across much of the formerly colonized world that pits the virtues of religious martyrdom in the hands of European Christian missionaries against a sense of political betrayal on the part of those evangelized African martyrs. What do you think was and still is at stake in the martyrdom of our own Ugandan martyrs?
When martyrdom took place, the Anglicans had been here for 9 years, and the Catholics for 7 years. Of course, with God, everything is possible. But how much Christianity did these martyrs know? How much had they absorbed? You see, today, just today, almost 140 years after the establishment of Christianity, there are many Ugandans in this land of the martyrs who have one foot in traditional belief and another in Christianity. Now,
why are you saying that? Why are you looking at Dr. Shimba?
No, no, I haven't looked at him. So, my question is, but of course, with God everything is possible. If 140 years later, you have many Ugandans torn between traditional religion and Christianity, what about 7 and 9 years? How was it? But martyrdom happened. But sometimes we forget that a lot of would-be martyrs run away until the situation got better. They ran to Bunyoro. They were Christians. They ran to Bunyoro mainly and came back when the situation had cooled down. And I'm sure those maybe understood Christianity better than than the others who went to Namugongo.
Indeed.
Because Jesus Christ warned his supporters that don't contest. When you are challenged, run away to another town. That is in the Bible.
When confronted, you can
don't confront. You just run away. So maybe they had read about those who had read a bit more, knew about this, and they took off. And these ones, maybe who didn't know about that, stayed.
Thank you very much, Professor Wangarunyiko.
Can I add something?
Please do.
You see, from Munyonyo to Namugongo, it took some time for them to get there. And our friends, Mapera and Mackay, accompanied them. Right?
Yes.
Now, these are the fellows who had tutored them, told them about Christianity, and they were urging them to martyrdom. One asks why nobody prevented them from becoming martyrs themselves. Why didn't they lead these young men to the fires of Namugongo? I think whatever I'm saying should have been taken into account by the missionaries who taught these people. And in any case, those who had heard about the resurrection, Jesus was around the third day after having been crucified. Maybe these young men also thought that, well, let me go, but in a few days I'll be back.
Or they would be like Daniel.
Yeah, you know, that in a few days we shall be back. So a few days will not that matter that much. So maybe those were some of the thoughts of these young people, not sophisticated.
This is just the beginning of a conversation that is supposed to go on and on and on. Thank you very, very much.
Professor Kiamanywa, the Chancellor at the Archdiocese here, colleague, Honorable Minister, former Minister, Ambassador, Professor Simakula Kiwanuka, the panel, the academia, the Reverend Fathers, Professor Peterson, Derek, behind there, I think I saw him, distinguished friends, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Cabinet actually decided that as far as Namugongo Martyrs Shrine Basilica is concerned, the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife will now be responsible for the 3rd June celebrations. So there is no debate anymore. Yes, there is no debate and ping-ponging between tourism and gender, labor, and social development. Now it is a preserve and responsibility of the Ministry of Tourism. The reason being, we are really talking about faith-based tourism. Now, if the debate continues, whether Namugongo is tourism or a pilgrimage. That's a debate I think the church should continue discussing. I think at the Catholic Secretariat, it is a pilgrimage. Now, apparently in the Ministry of Tourism, it will continue being a faith-based tourism. But we shall find the way how we can agree so that the two can work together. And therefore, the budgeting for 3rd June now will be the responsibility of my ministry. So anything going wrong there, I will have to take responsibility together with the parish priest of Namugongo. Let me thank Uganda Martyrs University and Rubaga and Kampala Archdiocese for inviting me and the preparations made for today's very, very important function. At the Ministry of Tourism, a lot of preparatory work continues to repatriate possibly all the artifacts from Uganda which are domiciled in Europe. And is it about 3-4 months ago, we did bring home some artifacts from the universities of Cambridge, I think, and Oxford, Cambridge University. And Professor Derek Peterson was very, very instrumental in that exercise. For today, this is a repatriation of relics. This needs a completely different approach. Different authorities are involved, and maybe even different legal requirements may be required for us to repatriate relics. This is therefore to thank the university, to thank all those that have collaborated in bringing, I don't know whether bringing forever or they are being loaned, isn't it? Temporarily. So the word is temporarily. But in the case of the artifacts which came to the ministry, I was discussing confiscation. Because you can loan and I confiscate. But that's not the discussion for today, isn't it? I don't expect the Catholic Church to confiscate, is it? Relics. But there you are. That one also remains for you, the curator, to continue curating. So here we are talking really about relics. And the exhibition we are unveiling consists of written, photographic, audiovisual, archival materials, and most critical of all, the surviving first-class miraculous relics of the canonized Uganda Martyrs, which had been domiciled in Rome in the custody of the missionaries of Africa since 1940, a very long period before I was born. And I may be one of the oldest gentlemen around here. I think shortly after maybe Professor Kiwanuka may be older, but there you are. Professor Samakula Kiwanuka. Therefore, for more than half a century, these consequential signs of the heroic history of the Church in Uganda have been lying in Rome, where they were kept during the decade-long process by which the church, through rigorous Catholic Church processes, were eventually recognized, beatified, canonized into saints. And I think that's a great victory for this country. Charles Lwanga, Matthias Mulumba, and 20 other compatriots were martyred, as you all know, around Namugongo between 1885 and 1887. During the panel discussion, I now realized that 1964, therefore, at the Vatican, when Uganda Martyrs were canonized, it was a fundamental change, isn't it? It was really a fundamental change because, and you know what a fundamental change means? Because you are talking of the participation, isn't it? The drumming, isn't it? The Ngalavi, all these kind of things. So for the Vatican, that must have been a very surprising piece of worship, isn't it? And therefore a fundamental change. And we haven't claimed that fundamental change, and we should continue claiming that change which was brought about, isn't it, at the Vatican on that particular day when our saints were canonized. Based on their sacrifice for martyrdom, paying with their blood, Uganda, all over the world, is revered as a country of faith, as we all know. And every pontiff I have known personally, from Paul VI to Francis II, all the popes after Paul VI, I don't know, except one, I think, who did not manage to come, have tried to make a pilgrimage to Uganda, isn't it? And even Francis II was here, as you know very well. And I'm sure that his successor will come to Uganda. So Uganda is a special place. It is a country of really deep faith as far as the Universal Church is concerned. The Museums and Monuments Act 2023 empowers my ministry to promote and partner with the private sector, the academia, religious institutions, etc., in order to invest and develop museums, cultural sites, historical monuments, and indeed historical places of worship. We at the Ministry of Tourism are ready to fulfill this obligation. So therefore, collaboration is real. It's not cosmetic, but real. And that's why the ministry has been involved right from when we knew, right, when you came to my office. We have been participating, and we are still here in a big way. The commissioner is here, the UTB lady, has she disappeared? No, she's here. But anyway, so we are collaborating and working together. With the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, are ready to fulfill this obligation. The Uganda Gazette, anytime now, will soon publish all protected sites for everybody to know. All protected sites. Here you will find our iconic places of worship in Uganda. The basilicas, the cathedrals, mosques, temples, etc. So that everybody knows. And this will be in the Gazette, isn't it, Commissioner? So that we know Rubaga is Rubaga. And it's a protected site, isn't it? And it enjoys state protection. Is that correct? State protection. And Kigungu, and Munyonyo, and others. So I want to thank the Center for African Studies at Uganda Martyrs University, the university community for their close collaboration with the Archdiocese of Kampala, the Missionaries of Africa, the Dicastery of Communications at the Holy See, Uganda's Martyrs Minor Basilica at Munyonyo, and the Gaba Catholic Professionals and the University of Michigan, with Professor Peterson Derek behind there. I think one of these days I'm going to propose that, Professor Derek comes to Uganda almost every 2 months, all the way from Michigan. I think it is high time we gave him permanent residence, isn't it? So that really he doesn't have to bother to get a visa every time he's coming, isn't it? Because he's here every 3 months, every 2 months, every 2 months, and he's here now. So I'm going to propose, of course, if he so wishes, for spearheading the realization of this very rare exhibition at such a critical moment of our country's history. I want to thank the Department of Museums and Monuments for their capacity to collaborate and to create awareness and partnerships with various organizations, which has made the department quite vibrant. I want to thank the panel. This is an evening, I can tell you, well spent, isn't it? And those who have been to university, as I have, isn't it? This is the kind of evening one needs, isn't it? So that you can really enjoy giants, isn't it? Discussing and really giving information which excites your mind, but which also reminds you that there are very many things which took place, but now can be understood in a more analytical manner than what you thought what had happened at that time. I will go ahead and open this exhibition on the story of the Uganda Martyrs with the theme, Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. Matthew 22:21. We as government pledge our support and the ministry's total collaboration to see that such endeavors proliferate to feed into a definite establishment of a multimedia Uganda Martyrs Museum for dissemination of decolonized knowledge on this important subject of Christian martyrdom in our country, Uganda. I must thank you for coming and participating in this very, very exciting and very, very important event. I thank you so much. Thank you.